While I was at work, my parents threw my sister a surprise party in my backyard without asking. They used my pool, my grill, and my speakers, then left thousands of dollars in damage. When I handed my mom the repair bill, she tore it up and said, "We're family." So I let my lawyer handle the rest. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being part of our journey. Our next goal is to reach 200 subscribers by the end of this month. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe and help us achieve this milestone. Every subscription means the world to us. My name is Rachel Bennett. I'm 35 years old, and my parents threw my younger sister a surprise birthday party in my backyard without asking me. While I was at work, when I got home, there were more than 50 strangers swimming in my pool, children jumping off patio furniture, someone grilling burgers on my outdoor kitchen. My expensive Bluetooth speaker system was blasting music loud enough for the entire neighborhood to hear. Empty beer bottles floated in my pool. My flower beds had been trampled. One patio chair lay broken in half. My grill lid had a massive dent. The pool filter was making a grinding noise I'd never heard before. I stood frozen in my own driveway. My mother noticed me. She smiled, waved happily, then shouted, "Perfect timing. Come celebrate your sister." An hour later, after everyone finally left, I handed my mother an itemized repair estimate totaling $2,347.86. She looked at it, laughed, ripped it into tiny pieces, then said, "Don't be so dramatic. We're family." I quietly smiled, picked up the duplicate copy from my folder, walked into my lawyer's office the very next morning, placed it on his desk, and calmly said, "I think it's time to handle this properly." But none of that happened overnight. It started years before I ever owned that house. Growing up, my younger sister Kayla was the center of everything. If Kayla wanted something, Mom found a way. If I wanted something, Dad usually smiled and said, "You'll figure it out." When Kayla turned 16, my parents surprised her with a brand new SUV. When I turned 16, I received a used bicycle from a neighbor. Mom hugged me. "It still gets you where you need to go." I learned very young. If I wanted something, I'd have to earn it myself. So I did. I worked after school, won scholarships, graduated with a degree in engineering, accepted a job with a renewable energy company, worked overtime, saved every bonus, skipped vacations, drove the same old car for nearly 10 years. Finally, at 33, I bought my dream home. It wasn't a mansion, but to me, it felt perfect. A beautiful backyard, a swimming pool, an outdoor kitchen with a built-in grill, a covered patio, string lights, a garden I'd planted myself. It became my peaceful place after long days at work. Every weekend, I watered flowers, cleaned the pool, hosted quiet dinners with close friends. For the first time in my life, I had something that belonged entirely to me. My parents visited once. Mom walked around the backyard. "This would be perfect for family parties." I smiled. "Maybe once in a while." She laughed. "Oh, don't worry. We'll make lots of memories here." Something about that sentence bothered me. Months later, Mom asked if she could borrow my spare key, just in case of emergencies. Against my better judgment, I agreed. She promised she'd only use it if absolutely necessary. I believed her. That was my mistake. 3 weeks before Kayla's birthday, Mom casually asked, "Are you doing anything on Saturday?" "I'll be working." She smiled. "Busy as always." I thought nothing of it. Saturday morning, I left for work before sunrise. Everything looked normal. The backyard was spotless. The pool had just been cleaned. The grill had been professionally serviced 2 days earlier. Around lunchtime, my next-door neighbor texted me, "Are you hosting a party?" I frowned. "No, why?" She replied with one photograph. Dozens of cars lined my street, large balloons tied to my mailbox, a bounce house sitting in my backyard. My stomach dropped. I immediately called my mother. She didn't answer. I called again, straight to voicemail. The rest of the afternoon felt endless. The moment my shift ended, I drove home. Traffic seemed slower than ever. As I turned onto my street, music echoed through the neighborhood. Cars filled both sides of the road. People I'd never met were carrying drinks through my front gate. One man waved at me. "Great party." I didn't answer. I parked, walked through my own gate, and froze. There had to be at least 50 people. Children splashed in my pool. Someone had moved all my patio furniture. Grease covered the outdoor kitchen. My expensive speakers were sitting beside the pool. One had already fallen into the water. Nobody even noticed me, until Mom spotted me. There she is. Everyone turned. Mom walked over smiling. "We surprised Kayla." I looked around slowly. In my house, she laughed. "You weren't using it." I quietly asked, "Who gave everyone permission to be here?" Dad answered from the grill. "We're family." As if that explained everything. Kayla walked over wearing a birthday sash. Isn't this amazing? I looked at her. Did you know this was my house? She blinked. I thought Mom asked. Mom quickly interrupted. Oh, don't start. Today's about your sister. I didn't argue. I simply walked through my backyard, taking photographs, every broken chair, every damaged flower bed, the cracked pool tile, the dented grill, the soaked speaker, empty bottles scattered across the lawn. Someone whispered, "Why is she taking pictures?" I kept taking them, quietly, calmly, without saying a word. The party ended an hour later. When the last guest finally left, silence settled over the yard. I spent nearly 2 hours documenting everything. The following Monday, 3 repair companies inspected the damage: pool equipment, landscaping, outdoor furniture, audio equipment. The total estimate came to $2,347.86. I printed every estimate, attached photographs, created one simple invoice, then drove to my parents' house. Mom smiled when she opened the door. Back already? I handed her the folder. She opened it, read the first page, laughed, then looked directly at me. You can't be serious. I am. She slowly tore the invoice in half, then into quarters, then dropped the pieces onto the floor. Don't be dramatic. We're family. I quietly looked at the shredded paper, then smiled. No, you tore up the original. I reached into my bag, pulled out an identical copy, and calmly said, I always print too. The smile disappeared from her face. I turned around, walked back to my car. The next morning, I sat across from my attorney, placed the duplicate invoice on his desk. He looked through the photographs, the repair estimates, the timeline, then looked up at me. How would you like to proceed? I smiled calmly. Let's do this properly. Sometimes, the people who laugh at your boundaries only do so because they've never had to face the consequences of crossing them. As my attorney reached for the certified demand letter, and my mother still believed tearing up one piece of paper had ended the matter, I realized the real conversation hadn't even begun. My attorney read every page, the repair estimates, the photographs, the time-stamped security camera footage. Then he looked at me. Did you give anyone permission to use your property? No. Did anyone have permission to invite guests? No. Did they admit they entered using the spare key? I nodded. My mother openly told me she used it. He smiled. Good. I don't mean good that it happened. I mean good that they admitted it. He leaned back. This should be straightforward. I quietly asked, what happens now? We begin with a formal demand letter. If they refuse, we move forward. I nodded. Let's do it. 3 days later, a certified envelope arrived at my parents' house. Inside was a formal demand for reimbursement, copies of every repair estimate, photographs, and a deadline to respond. My mother called within an hour. She sounded furious. You hired a lawyer? Yes. Over a family party? No. Over property damage? She laughed. This won't hold up. We're family, I calmly answered. The law doesn't change because we're related. Then I hung up. For the next week, nothing happened. The deadline passed. No payment, no apology. Instead, my father left a voicemail. You've embarrassed this family enough. Drop it. I forwarded the voicemail to my attorney. He simply smiled. Thank you. That actually helps. A month later, we appeared in small claims court. It wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no television-style courtroom speeches. Just facts. My parents sat with my sister. I sat beside my attorney. The judge reviewed the evidence carefully. First, the photographs, then, the repair invoices, then, the security footage from my front and backyard cameras. My attorney played the recording. It clearly showed my mother unlocking my front door with the spare key, guests carrying coolers inside, children jumping into the pool, someone knocking over my outdoor speaker, another guest backing into the grill with a folding table. Every important moment, recorded. The judge looked toward my mother. Did you have permission to hold this event? Mom hesitated. We're family. The judge repeated the question. Did you have permission? No. He looked at my father. Did you contribute to organizing the event? Dad quietly nodded. Yes. The judge turned toward Kayla. Did you know the homeowner hadn't approved this? Kayla looked down. I honestly thought she had. She looked at me. I'm sorry. For the first time, I believed her. The judge continued reviewing the file. Then he held up the repair estimates. These appear reasonable. My father suddenly interrupted. She's exaggerating. My attorney quietly handed over the inspection reports, professional estimates, receipts, time-stamped photographs. The judge compared everything, then looked directly at my parents. I don't see any exaggeration. Silence. He asked one final question. Why didn't you simply pay for the damage? Mom answered before anyone else, because she shouldn't charge family. The judge gently smiled. No, she charged the people who caused the damage. Those happened to be family. 20 minutes later, the judge ruled in my favor. My parents were ordered to reimburse the repair costs, court filing fees, and related expenses. Mom stared at the paperwork in disbelief. We actually lost? The judge calmly replied, you weren't sued for having a family gathering. You were held responsible for entering private property without permission and causing documented damage. As everyone stood to leave, Kayla quietly walked over to me. I really didn't know. I know. She looked embarrassed. When Mom said she'd planned everything, I believed her. I would have never wanted my birthday celebrated like that. I smiled gently. I believe you. She took a deep breath. I'll help pay. I shook my head. This isn't your responsibility. She looked toward our parents. It should have been. A week later, the payment arrived, along with another envelope. Inside was my spare house key. No note, no apology, just the key. I smiled, because that was all I needed. The very next day, every lock in my house was replaced. A new security system was installed, not because I feared strangers, because I had finally learned that boundaries deserve protection. Epilogue, nearly 3 years have passed. My backyard looks beautiful again. The garden is fuller than ever. The pool sparkles every summer. The outdoor kitchen has hosted countless dinners. Every guest who visits now receives an invitation. No exceptions. Kayla and I slowly rebuilt our relationship. One afternoon, she admitted something. I always thought Mom was protecting me. Now I realize she was preventing me from taking responsibility. That honesty changed everything. Our parents needed much longer. Eventually, Mom apologized, not because the court ordered her to, because she finally realized something. She hadn't just damaged my property, she had damaged my trust. Trust takes longer to repair than a broken patio chair. But at least, she finally understood why. My thoughts. Looking back, the hardest thing I ever handed my mother wasn't an invoice. It was a consequence. For years, she believed the word family erased responsibility. It doesn't. Real family respects your home, your boundaries, and your hard work. If they accidentally damage something, they offer to fix it. They don't laugh and expect you to absorb the cost. Sometimes, the strongest way to protect a relationship isn't pretending nothing happened. It's making it clear that respect is the price of staying welcome in your life. Because a house becomes a home through years of care, and every home deserves the same thing from the people who enter it: permission, gratitude, and respect.